8-year-old Naomi Washington wasn't supposed to be in Victor Hale's office. The billionaire appeared to be sleeping in his leather chair, his safe mysteriously open with cash scattered across the Persian rug. Through barely opened eyes, Victor watched the child approach in her oversized yellow cleaning gloves, waiting for her to prove what 52 years of betrayal had taught him: that everyone, even children, could be bought. But Naomi did something that would haunt Victor for weeks to come, something that challenged everything he believed about human nature. In his mansion of 27 rooms and priceless art, where security cameras captured every angle and trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, this little girl with her worn sneakers and unicorn notebook was about to set in motion events that would expose 7 years of deception, destroy a perfect crime, and teach a bitter billionaire that sometimes the poorest people possess the richest hearts. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The grandfather clock in Victor Hale's study struck 3 in the afternoon, its deep chime echoing through the marble halls of his sprawling estate. Victor sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, watching the security monitors with the intensity of a hawk surveying its territory. At 52, he had built an empire worth billions, but trust, that was a luxury he could never afford. "Sir, the new maid has arrived for her shift." His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Victor didn't respond immediately. His gray eyes tracked the figure on the screen. Angela Washington, 34 years old, single mother, impeccable references. Too impeccable, perhaps. In his experience, everyone had a price, everyone had a breaking point. It was just a matter of finding it. Angela moved through the entrance hall with practiced efficiency, her uniform crisp despite having already cleaned 3 other houses that morning. Behind her, a small figure followed. Her daughter, Naomi, 8 years old according to the background check Victor had personally overseen. The girl wore a faded purple backpack and kept her hands clasped in front of her, eyes wide as she took in the opulent surroundings. "Mommy, this place is bigger than our whole apartment building," Naomi whispered, though her voice carried in the vast space. "Hush now, baby. Remember what I told you. Stay quiet and don't touch anything. Mr. Hale is very particular about his things." Victor leaned back in his leather chair, a slight smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. Particular. That was one way to put it. His employees called him many things when they thought he wasn't listening: cold, calculating, paranoid. They weren't wrong, but they didn't understand that paranoia had kept him alive in the cutthroat world of international finance. It had protected him when his own brother tried to embezzle from the company. It had saved him when his former CFO attempted to drain millions from offshore accounts. The afternoon sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the Persian rug as Victor watched mother and daughter navigate his domain. Angela began her routine in the West Wing, methodically working through each room while Naomi sat in the hallway, pulling out a worn homework folder from her backpack. Multiplication tables, the girl muttered to herself, pencil scratching against paper. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 9 is... Victor found himself oddly drawn to the child's concentration. There was something about her focus, the way she chewed her bottom lip when struggling with a problem, that reminded him of someone, though he couldn't quite place who. As the days passed, a routine developed. Angela would arrive at 3:15 sharp, Naomi in tow. The girl would find a quiet corner to do her homework while her mother cleaned. Sometimes Victor would pass them in the hallway, and Naomi would offer a shy smile and a soft "Good afternoon, Mr. Hale." He never responded, maintaining his facade of cold indifference, but he noticed things. How Naomi always removed her shoes at the door without being asked. How she carefully picked up any pencil shavings that fell from her sharpener. How she shared her meager after-school snack with her mother, always offering the bigger half. "She's sharp," Victor mentioned to his head of security, Marcus Thompson, one evening. The child. She notices things. Marcus, a former Navy SEAL who'd been with Victor for 15 years, nodded. "Kids see everything, boss. They just don't always understand what they're seeing." But Victor wondered if perhaps Naomi understood more than most. There was a wisdom in her dark eyes that seemed beyond her years, a careful watchfulness that he recognized. It was the look of someone who'd learned early that the world could be unpredictable. The idea came to him on a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks after Angela had started. He'd been reviewing quarterly reports when the thought struck him like lightning. A test. Not for Angela. He'd already had her thoroughly vetted, but for the child. Children, after all, hadn't yet learned to hide their true nature behind masks of propriety. Victor made his preparations carefully. First, he adjusted the hidden cameras in his office, ensuring they captured every angle. The tiny devices, no bigger than pinheads, were state-of-the-art, invisible to the naked eye. Then he arranged a scene. His personal safe, usually locked with a 12-digit code and biometric scanner, stood slightly ajar. Inside, neat stacks of $100 bills were visible, along with several gold coins from his collection. A few bills were scattered on the floor nearby, as if they'd fallen during a hasty withdrawal. Finally, Victor settled into his high-backed chair, loosened his tie, and closed his eyes. To anyone watching, he would appear to be taking an afternoon nap, not unusual for a man who often worked 18-hour days. But through the slits of his barely open eyelids, he could see everything. The wait wasn't long. He heard Naomi's voice in the hallway, talking to her mother about a spelling test she'd aced. Angela's response was warm but distracted. She had work to do. Footsteps approached his office door, which he'd left purposefully cracked open. "Mom, Mr. Hale's door is open," Naomi said. "Don't go in there, baby. That's his private office." "But what if something's wrong? What if he needs help?" "Naomi, no." But curiosity, that most powerful force in any child's life, had already taken hold. Victor heard the soft pad of small feet crossing his threshold. Through his barely open eyes, he watched Naomi enter, her movement cautious as a deer entering a clearing. She wore bright yellow cleaning gloves, too big for her small hands, probably borrowed from her mother's supplies. The girl stopped when she saw him sleeping in his chair. For a moment, she stood perfectly still, seeming to debate whether to leave or check if he was okay. Then her gaze fell on the open safe. Victor's pulse quickened, though he kept his breathing deep and regular. This was the moment of truth. The money was right there, practically begging to be taken. Even if she only pocketed a single bill, who would know? He appeared to be asleep, and her mother was busy in another room. It would be so easy. Naomi approached the safe slowly, her oversized gloves making her hands look like yellow paws. She stared at the money with an expression Victor couldn't quite read. Was it longing? Calculation? Greed? She knelt down, and Victor tensed, ready to wake up and catch her in the act. But instead of reaching into the safe, Naomi picked up the bills that had fallen on the floor. One by one, she gathered them carefully, smoothing out any wrinkles with her gloved hands. Then, with deliberate precision, she placed them back inside the safe. Victor's practiced breathing nearly faltered. He watched, genuinely stunned, as the child tried to close the safe door. It was too heavy for her, and she struggled with it for several seconds before managing to push it mostly shut. She stood back, surveyed her work with a satisfied nod, and turned to leave. But then she paused. Turning back, she approached Victor's desk and picked up a glass paperweight that had rolled near the edge. She placed it safely in the center of the desk, away from where it might fall and break. As she did so, she noticed Victor's tie had twisted. With infinite gentleness, careful not to wake him, she straightened it. "Sleep good, Mr. Hale," she whispered. "Mom says everyone needs rest, even rich people." Then she was gone, her small footsteps fading down the hallway. Victor remained frozen in his chair for a full minute after she left, his mind reeling. In 30 years of business, he'd tested hundreds of people. They almost always failed. Greed was human nature. He'd built his fortune understanding and exploiting that fundamental truth. But this child, this 8-year-old girl with her too big gloves and worn backpack, had just shattered his worldview with a simple act of honesty. He stood abruptly and moved to his computer, pulling up the camera footage. He watched it again, then again, looking for some angle he'd missed, some sleight of hand that would explain what he'd seen. But there was nothing, just a little girl doing what she thought was right, with no expectation of reward or recognition. Victor poured himself a scotch, Macallan, 25 years old, and stood at his window, looking out at the manicured grounds of his estate. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of amber and crimson, and somewhere in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years stirred. It felt uncomfortably like shame. The footage played for the 5th time on Victor's computer screen. Each viewing revealed new details he'd missed before. The way Naomi had hummed softly while organizing the scattered bills, how she'd used her sleeve to wipe a small smudge from the safe store, the careful way she'd stepped around his expensive rug to avoid leaving footprints. The timestamp read 3:47 p.m., but Victor sat watching it well past midnight, nursing his 3rd scotch. His phone buzzed. Marcus was checking in, as he did every night before retiring to the security quarters. "All clear, boss. Anything you need before I turn in?" Victor hesitated. "Marcus, in your experience, what would a child do if they found money lying around with no one watching?" There was a pause on the other end. "Depend on the kid, I suppose. But most would probably pocket at least some of it. Human nature and all that." "Why do you ask?" "No reason." "Good night, Marcus." But there was a reason, and it gnawed at him like a splinter under his skin. Victor minimized the security footage and pulled up Angela's employment file again. Single mother, worked 3 jobs to make ends meet, no criminal record, excellent references from previous employers. Her financial records, which he'd obtained through less than legal means, showed she was barely keeping her head above water. Medical debt from her mother's cancer treatment, student loans from a nursing degree she'd never been able to finish, rent on a 2-bedroom apartment in a rough part of town. By all logic, Angela should be desperate enough to steal. And if not her, certainly her child should have shown some temptation. Yet neither had taken the bait. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching Victor's unsettled mood. He worked from home, claiming he needed to review contracts, but in truth, he was waiting. At 3:15 sharp, Angela arrived with Naomi. Through his security system, he watched them enter, shaking rain from their shared umbrella. "Mom, my shoes are all wet," Naomi said, pulling off her worn sneakers. "We'll put them by the heating vent to dry." "Come on, baby. Let's get you set up with your homework." Victor found himself drawn from his office, making his way toward the kitchen under the pretense of getting coffee. He timed it perfectly, passing them in the hallway just as they were settling in. "Good afternoon, Mr. Hale," Naomi said brightly, despite her damp hair and clothes. He nodded curtly, not trusting himself to speak. Angela offered a respectful "sir" and continued on her way. But Victor lingered in the kitchen, ear attuned to their conversation in the next room. "Mom, yesterday Mr. Hale left his money box open," Naomi was saying. "I put the money back and closed it." The sound of Angela's cleaning supplies hitting the floor made Victor lean closer to the doorway. "You did what?" "Naomi Grace Washington. You know better than to go into Mr. Hale's office." "But, Mom, his door was open and he was sleeping. I thought maybe he forgot." "I don't care if his door was wide open with a welcome sign on it. That's his private space. You could get us both fired. Do you understand how serious this is?" "I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to help." The money was on the floor, and... "You didn't take any of it, did you?" Angela's voice was sharp with fear. "No, Mom. You know I would never." "I know, baby, I know. But Mr. Hale doesn't know that. Rich people like him, they always think people like us are trying to take advantage. That's why we have to be extra careful, extra honest. One mistake, and we're out." Victor felt something twist in his chest. Angela was right, of course. He did think that way. I always thought that way. It had kept him safe, kept him successful. But hearing it spoken aloud, hearing the fear in Angela's voice as she tried to protect her daughter from his judgment, it sat like acid in his stomach. He returned to his office and tried to focus on work, but his mind kept wandering. At 5 o'clock, he heard a soft knock on his doorframe. Naomi stood there, a glass of water in her hands. "Mr. Hale? Mom says you've been working all day. She says even rich people get tired and need water." The glass was nothing special, plain crystal from his kitchen, but Naomi held it like it was precious cargo. Her yellow gloves from yesterday were gone, replaced by small hands that trembled slightly with nervousness. "I don't need," he began automatically, then stopped. The girl's face fell slightly, and he found himself reaching for the glass. "Thank you." Her smile could have lit up the room. "You're welcome." Mom says staying hydrated is important. She learned that when she was studying to be a nurse before. She caught herself, eyes widening. Have a good evening, Mr. Hale." She scurried away before he could respond, leaving Victor holding the glass of water and wondering about the story she'd almost told. Angela had studied nursing. Why hadn't she finished? He made a mental note to investigate further. The water was room temperature and tasted faintly of the lemon Angela used to clean his counters, but Victor drank it all. That night, memories surfaced unbidden as he lay in his king-sized bed. His father's business partner, Uncle Tony they'd called him, who'd smiled at family dinners while secretly siphoning funds from the company. His college girlfriend, Patricia, who'd professed love while selling information about his startup to competitors. His own brother, Michael, who tried to have him declared mentally incompetent to gain control of his assets. Each betrayal had built another wall around Victor's heart, another layer of protection against a world that seemed determined to take everything from him. Trust, he'd learned, was a luxury only fools could afford. But then why did Naomi's simple act of honesty shake him so deeply? The next morning, Victor made a decision. One test wasn't enough. Children could be coached, after all. Perhaps Angela had instructed her daughter to act honestly if she ever encountered an opportunity to steal. He needed more data. This time, he scattered jewelry across his desk. A Rolex watch, diamond cufflinks, a platinum tie clip. All expensive, all small enough to slip into a pocket unnoticed. He positioned himself in the adjoining conference room, door cracked just enough to see through. Like clockwork, Angela and Naomi arrived at 3:15. While Angela began her routine in the bathroom, Naomi wandered past his office, textbooks in hand. She paused at the open door, peering inside. "Oh no," she whispered to herself. Victor tensed, ready to spring his trap. But instead of entering to steal, Naomi looked around for her mother. "Mom," she called out. Mr. Hale left his door open again, and his special things are all over his desk. Angela appeared, wiping her hands on her apron. "What?" "Naomi, stay away from there." "But Mom, what if someone else sees? What if someone takes them, and Mr. Hale thinks it was us?" Victor watched Angela war with herself, clearly torn between not wanting to enter his office and protecting herself from suspicion. Finally, she made a decision. "Okay, we'll tell Marcus about it. He'll know what to do." But Naomi was already pulling on her yellow gloves. "I'll just organize them nice and neat. That way they'll be safe until Mr. Hale comes back." Before Angela could stop her, Naomi had entered the office. With the same meticulous care she'd shown with the money, she gathered the jewelry pieces. But instead of pocketing anything, she pulled a tissue from her pocket and carefully polished each item before arranging them in a neat line on Victor's desk, organized by size. "There," she said with satisfaction. "Now they won't roll off and get lost." Angela stood in the doorway, shaking her head. "Baby, you can't just—" "It's okay, Mom. I am helping. Mr. Hale works so hard. He probably just forgot. Like when you forget where you put your keys because you're thinking about bills." The innocence of the comparison, Victor's carelessness with fortune equated to Angela's everyday stress, struck him unexpectedly. Through the crack in the door, he watched Angela hug her daughter tightly. "You have a good heart, baby. Just be careful with it, okay? Not everyone deserves your trust. Even Mr. Hale." Angela glanced around nervously. "Especially people with power, Naomi. They don't always see us as real people. To them, we're just workers, employees, replaceable." Victor retreated further into the shadows of the conference room. Is that what he'd become? Someone who saw other humans as mere functions, as potential threats or useful tools. When had he stopped seeing people and started seeing only risks and opportunities? As the weeks passed, Victor found himself creating more tests, each more elaborate than the last. He left important documents unmarked on his desk. He forgot his wallet in plain sight. Once, he even left a signed blank check on the kitchen counter. Every single time, Naomi either returned the items directly or alerted her mother to their presence. Never once did she take anything, not even when he left a bowl of her favorite candy. He'd overheard her mentioning she loved peppermints, unattended in the living room. Mr. Hale forgot his candy, she told her mother. Should we put in his office? That's not our job, baby. Leave it where it is. But what if ants come? The concern for his property, even something as trivial as candy, baffled Victor. He'd tested CEOs who'd failed within minutes. Yet this 8-year-old girl consistently chose honesty over easy gain. One evening, as Angela was finishing up her cleaning, Victor overheard a phone conversation she was having in the hallway. She spoke in hushed tones, but his house had excellent acoustics. No, Mama, I can't take that from you. I know the treatment is expensive, but you need that money for... Mama, please don't cry. I'm working on it, okay? Mr. Hale pays well, and if I can just pick up a few more houses... No, we're not going to lose the apartment. Yes, Naomi's doing fine in school. I know, Mama. I know you want to help, but you need to focus on getting better. Victor pulled up Angela's financial records again on his computer. The medical debt was staggering. Nearly $200,000 for her mother's cancer treatment. Insurance had covered some, but not nearly enough. Angela was drowning, working herself to exhaustion to keep her family afloat. And still, she hadn't taken a penny from him. Neither had her daughter. For the first time in decades, Victor questioned everything he thought he knew about human nature. His fortress of mistrust, built brick by brick through years of betrayal, was beginning to show cracks. And through those cracks, something long dormant was beginning to grow. The morning after Victor had overheard Angela's phone conversation about her mother's medical bills, he found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, arriving late to his office. He'd spent the night awake, staring at spreadsheets that detailed Angela's financial situation, each number telling a story of quiet desperation and stubborn pride. At 8:47 a.m., his phone buzzed. Marcus, his security chief, was calling. Boss, just wanted to let you know that Mrs. Washington called. She'll be 30 minutes late today. Her mother had a doctor's appointment that ran over. Fine, Victor said, though he found himself oddly disappointed. He'd grown accustomed to the sound of Naomi's cheerful greeting at 3:15 sharp. When they finally arrived at 3:45, Victor was pretending to work in his study, though his attention was entirely focused on the security monitor showing the entrance hall. Naomi looked subdued, her usual brightness dimmed. Angela's face bore the telltale signs of someone who'd been crying. Puffy eyes carefully concealed with makeup, shoulders held a bit too rigid. Sorry we're late, Mr. Thompson, Angela was saying to Marcus. It won't happen again. No worries, Angela. Everything okay? She forced a smile. Just fine. Thank you for asking. But everything wasn't fine. Victor could see it in the way Naomi clung a little closer to her mother, in the way Angela's hands trembled slightly as she unpacked her cleaning supplies. He pulled up his laptop and, with a few keystrokes, accessed Angela's social media accounts. A violation of privacy he'd have done without thought weeks ago, but which now gave him a twinge of something uncomfortably close to guilt. Her latest post, made at 2 a.m., was simple. Faith is believing that somehow, some way, it will all work out. Has to. No other choice. Below it, comments from friends and family offered prayers and encouragement. One caught his eye, from someone named Denise. Girl, just take the money. You know I can help. Angela's response. Thank you, Dee, but no. I work for what I have. Always have, always will. That's the example I'm setting for Naomi. Victor closed the laptop harder than necessary. Pride. Stubborn, impractical pride. In his world, pride was a luxury reserved for those who could afford it. Angela Washington could not afford it, yet she wore it like armor. That afternoon, as Angela cleaned the upper floors, Naomi sat in her usual spot in the hallway, but instead of doing homework, she was drawing. Victor found himself walking past, purely coincidental, of course, and caught a glimpse of her artwork. It was a picture of 3 figures standing in front of a small house, a woman, a little girl, and an elderly woman with a bandana on her head. That's lovely, he heard himself say, the words escaping before he could stop them. Naomi jumped, quickly covering the drawing. Oh, Mr. Hale, I'm sorry, I finished my homework early and... It's fine. He stood awkwardly, unaccustomed to casual conversation with a child. Is that your grandmother? Naomi nodded, uncovering the picture slightly. That's Grandma Rose. She's sick, but Mom says she's the strongest person in the whole world. She used to be a teacher, you know. She taught Mom everything about being good and honest and working hard. And she taught you too? She tries, but she gets tired now because of the medicine. Sometimes she forgets things. But when she remembers, she tells me stories about when Mom was little and how proud she is of her for raising me, right even when things are hard. The innocence of the statement, the casual acknowledgement of hardship without self-pity, struck Victor like a physical blow. When was the last time he'd heard someone speak of struggle without immediately following it with a request for help or money? Mr. Hale, Naomi said suddenly, looking up at him with those impossibly earnest eyes, why do you have so much money but look so lonely? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Victor felt his automatic defenses rising, the cold mask sliding into place. That's not an appropriate question, he said stiffly. Oh, Naomi's face fell. I'm sorry. Grandma Rose says I asked too many questions. She says curiosity is good, but I need to learn when to keep it inside my head. Your grandmother sounds wise. She is. She says rich people have their own troubles, just different ones. She says money can't buy the important things. And what do you think the important things are? Naomi considered this seriously, chewing on her pencil. Family. Friends. Being able to sleep without worrying you did something wrong. Hugs. Definitely hugs. When was the last time someone hugged you, Mr. Hale? The question was so unexpected, so gently delivered, that Victor actually took a step back. When was the last time someone had hugged him? His mother's funeral, perhaps? That would have been 15 years ago. That's not. Mom gives the best hugs. Naomi continued, seemingly oblivious to his discomfort. When I'm sad or scared, she hugs me and everything feels better. Maybe you should try it sometime. Naomi, Angela's voice called from down the hall. Stop bothering Mr. Hale. I'm not bothering him, Mom. We're having a conversation about important things. Angela appeared, face flushed with mortification. I'm so sorry, Mr. Hale. Naomi, come here right now. But Mom, now. As Naomi gathered her things, Victor heard her whisper, I wasn't trying to be rude. I know, baby, but you can't just ask people personal questions like that. Even if they look sad, especially then. They moved away, but not before Victor caught Angela's worried glance back at him. He retreated to his office, Naomi's question echoing in his mind. Lonely. The child had seen through his billions, his security systems, his carefully maintained distance, and identified the one thing he'd never admitted to himself. He was lonely. That evening, unable to concentrate on work, Victor did something he hadn't done in years. He walked through his mansion, really looking at it. 27 rooms, most of which he never entered. Priceless art on the walls that he never stopped to appreciate. A dining room table that seated 20 but had hosted no one but himself for the past decade. Every space was immaculate, thanks to Angela and the other staff, but it was all as cold and lifeless as a museum. In the kitchen, he found Angela putting away her supplies. She froze when she saw him. I'm almost finished, Mr. Hale. I'll be out of your way in just... Your daughter asks a lot of questions. Angela's face went pale. I'm so sorry about earlier. I've talked to her about boundaries. It won't happen again. She asked why I look lonely. The words hung between them. Angela seemed to be calculating whether honesty or deflection was safer. Children see things adults learn to ignore, she finally said. And what do you see? Angela met his gaze steadily. A man who's built walls so high he's forgotten what's on the other side. The boldness of the statement should have angered him. 2 months ago, it would have resulted in immediate termination. But now, Victor found himself oddly grateful for the honesty. Your mother, he said, changing the subject. The treatment isn't working? Angela's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing raw fear underneath. The doctors say she needs a different protocol. More aggressive. More expensive. How much more expensive? More than I'll make in the next 5 years, even with 3 jobs. She straightened her shoulders. But I'll figure it out. I always do. Through pride and stubbornness. A small smile flickered across her face. It's worked so far. Has it? The question came out harsher than he intended. Angela's smile disappeared. My daughter has a roof over her head, food in her belly, and she's learning that honest work has dignity. So yes, Mr. Hale, it's working. She gathered Naomi and left without another word, leaving Victor alone in his pristine, empty kitchen. That night, he made a decision. The next morning, he called Marcus into his office. I want you to give this to Angela, he said, handing over a sealed envelope. Tell her it's a performance bonus. Marcus looked at the envelope, thick with what was obviously cash. Boss, is everything okay? This isn't like you. Just do it. But when Marcus returned an hour later, he still had the envelope. She wouldn't take it, Marcus reported, looking bemused. Said she hadn't done anything to earn a bonus and wouldn't accept charity. Victor stared at the returned envelope. In his entire life, he'd never met anyone who turned down free money. It defied everything he understood about human nature. Did she say anything else? Just that she appreciates the job and hopes her work has been satisfactory. That afternoon, when Angela arrived with Naomi, Victor was waiting in the entrance hall, something he never did. Mrs. Washington, a word? Angela sent Naomi ahead with her homework and followed Victor to his office, clearly nervous. Have I done something wrong, Mr. Hale? Why didn't you take the bonus? She lifted her chin. Because it wasn't a bonus. It was pity, and I don't accept pity. Your mother needs treatment. That's my responsibility, not yours. Your pride is going to cost your mother her life. The words were cruel, calculated to wound. It was how Victor had always operated. Find the weakness, exploit it. But the moment they left his mouth, he saw their impact. Angela's face crumpled for just a second before she rebuilt her composure. My pride, she said quietly, is all I have to leave my daughter. The knowledge that her mother earned every penny, that we never took what wasn't ours, that we stood on our own feet even when the ground was shaking. That's worth more than any amount of money. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. You asked what I see when I look at you, Mr. Hale. I see a man who's confused integrity with stupidity, kindness with weakness. I feel sorry for you. All that money, and you still can't buy what my daughter gives me freely every day, trust, love, and the ability to sleep peacefully knowing we've done right. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Victor sat in his office for a long time after that, staring at the envelope of cash on his desk. Through his security monitor, he could see Naomi in the hallway, working on her homework, occasionally looking up to wave at staff members passing by. Each person who passed smiled at her, stopped to chat for a moment. The gardener brought her a flower from the greenhouse. The cook snuck her a cookie. This 8-year-old child, with her worn backpack and 2 big yellow gloves, had something he with all his billions couldn't purchase: genuine human connection. The following Monday arrived with unseasonable warmth for late autumn, and Victor noticed the change in household dynamics immediately. Gregory Hartman, his butler of 7 years, was behaving differently. Where once he'd been invisibly efficient, now he lingered in doorways, his gaze following Angela as she worked. Gregory was everything a proper butler should be: tall, distinguished, with silver hair and impeccable manners. He'd come with outstanding references from a senator's household and had never given Victor reason for complaint. But now, watching him through the security monitors, Victor noticed the tightness around Gregory's mouth when Angela laughed at something Naomi said, the way his hands clenched when Victor acknowledged Angela's presence. Marcus, Victor called his security chief. What do you make of Gregory? Marcus considered the question carefully. He's competent, maybe a bit territorial about his position as senior staff. Why? Just observing. But Victor was doing more than observing. He was remembering the conversation he'd had with Gregory the previous week, when he'd mentioned giving Angela a bonus. Sir, if I may, Gregory had said in his cultured voice, one must be careful about showing favoritism to new staff. It can create discord in the household hierarchy. I wasn't aware we had a hierarchy beyond employer and employed. Of course, sir, but there are those of us who've served you loyally for years, and then there are recent additions. One wouldn't want the newer staff to get ideas above their station. The words had seemed reasonable at the time, but now Victor heard them differently. There was something underneath Gregory's polished exterior, something that was beginning to show through like tarnish on silver. That afternoon, Victor overheard Gregory speaking to Mrs. Patterson, the cook. "Mark my words, that woman is playing a long game," Gregory was saying, using her child to soften him up. "I've seen it before." "Oh, Gregory, she seems nice enough. And that little girl is an angel." "That's exactly what she wants you to think. But I've been here 7 years. I know Mr. Hale. He doesn't just start caring about the staff out of nowhere. She's manipulating him." Victor felt his jaw clench. The irony wasn't lost on him. Gregory was accusing Angela of exactly what Victor himself had suspected. But now, having tested Angela and Naomi repeatedly, he knew better. The question was, why was Gregory so threatened? The answer came during a review of the household accounts. Victor, who had admittedly been paying less attention to domestic expenses lately, noticed some discrepancies. Small ones, a few $100s here and there, listed as miscellaneous household expenses with Gregory's signature. Nothing that would normally catch attention in a budget of hundreds of thousands, but still, he was contemplating this when Naomi's voice drifted through his open office door. "Mr. Gregory, why are you in Mr. Hale's office?" Victor looked up at his security monitor. Gregory was indeed in his office, the private one on the 3rd floor that Victor rarely used. The butler was standing near the desk, hand frozen on a drawer handle. "I'm checking that everything is in order, child. Run along." "But Mom says we're not supposed to go in Mr. Hale's private spaces without permission." "I have standing permission. Now go." Through the monitor, Victor watched Naomi reluctantly leave, but not before taking one last suspicious look at Gregory. The butler waited until her footsteps faded, then continued opening drawers, clearly searching for something. Victor stood, intending to confront Gregory directly, but his phone rang, an important call from Tokyo he couldn't ignore. By the time he finished, Gregory was gone from the office, and the evening staff shift was ending. That night, Victor reviewed more security footage. Gregory's behavior had been escalating for weeks, ever since Victor had started paying attention to Angela and Naomi. The butler had been entering rooms he had no business in, staying late without authorization, and most tellingly, had been seen near Victor's office safe on 3 occasions. The next day, Gregory's campaign began in earnest. "Mr. Hale," he said, bringing Victor his afternoon coffee, something that wasn't technically his job, but which he'd taken upon himself. "I feel it's my duty to share some concerns about Mrs. Washington. Oh, I've noticed some items have gone missing. Small things, a silver letter opener, some cash from the petty cash box. I wouldn't want to accuse anyone, but you're accusing Angela. I'm simply noting that these disappearances began shortly after her arrival." Victor set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. "Have you reported these missing items to Marcus? I didn't want to make it official without speaking to you first. After all, she has a child. I wouldn't want to see them suffer if it's all a misunderstanding." The false concern in Gregory's voice was perfectly pitched, but Victor had spent decades reading people. He heard the satisfaction underneath, the pleasure Gregory took in planting seeds of doubt. "I'll look into it," Victor said neutrally. Gregory smiled. "Of course, sir. I'm sure it's nothing. Although," he paused dramatically, "I did notice Mrs. Washington near your office yesterday when you were out. She seemed to be checking if anyone was watching." That afternoon, Victor watched Angela work through the security monitors. She moved through the house with her usual efficiency, never lingering anywhere, never even glancing at valuables. When she reached his office, she knocked even though the door was open and she could see he wasn't there. "Mr. Hale, I need to clean your office. May I come in?" When no answer came, she moved on to the next room. She didn't enter his office at all. Meanwhile, Naomi sat in the hallway working on what appeared to be a school project about communities. She was drawing pictures of different jobs people did. Victor was surprised to see himself among them. A figure in a suit labeled Mr. Hale, business, makes jobs for other people. "That's good, baby," Angela said, passing by with her cleaning cart. "But you spelled business wrong." "Oh," Naomi erased carefully. "Mom, what does Mr. Hale actually do?" "He invests money, helps companies grow." "Is that why he's so serious all the time?" Because he's responsible for lots of people's jobs. Maybe. Or maybe he's forgotten that work isn't everything. Victor found himself thinking about that exchange later as Gregory presented him with more evidence. The butler had produced the missing letter opener, found, he claimed, in Angela's cleaning cart. "I'm not saying she took it intentionally," Gregory said with practiced concern. "Perhaps it fell in by accident. But, sir, you leave valuable things around all the time. Can you really trust someone in your home who might be careless with your possessions?" It was cleverly done. If Victor hadn't seen Gregory plant the letter opener himself, the security cameras in the supply room had caught everything. He might have been fooled. The question was, what was Gregory's endgame? The answer came the following day when Victor accidentally left his prized Patek Philippe watch on the bathroom counter. He'd modified it with a tiny tracking device, curious to see what would happen. Through the cameras, he watched Angela clean the bathroom, carefully moving the watch to clean underneath it, then placing it back exactly where it was. An hour later, Gregory entered the bathroom, supposedly to check Angela's work. The watch disappeared into his pocket. But here was the clever part. Gregory didn't keep it. Instead, Victor tracked it to Angela's cleaning cart, hidden deep in her supplies. Gregory intended to find it there later, the ultimate proof of Angela's theft. The trap was sophisticated, patient, and would have worked on anyone who didn't have Victor's resources and paranoia. But it raised a larger question. Why was Gregory doing this? Victor got his answer when he dug deeper into Gregory's financial records. The butler had been living beyond his means for years, supplementing his income through small thefts he'd attributed to other staff members who'd been dismissed. But with Victor's new attention to the household, Gregory must have felt the walls closing in. Angela was the perfect scapegoat, new, vulnerable, and with financial pressures that made her an unbelievable thief. That evening, as the staff was preparing to leave, Gregory made his move. "Mr. Hale, I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but I've made a disturbing discovery." He led Victor to the supply room, where Angela was putting away her cart. With theatrical concern, Gregory began searching the cart on a hunch. The watch appeared in his hand like a magic trick. "I can't believe it," Gregory said, shaking his head sadly. "Mrs. Washington, how could you?" Angela's face went white, then red. I would never." "It's my watch," Victor said quietly. Both Angela and Gregory turned to him. "The question is, how did it get there?" "Sir, I think that's obvious," Gregory began. "Is it?" At that moment, Naomi appeared in the doorway, her small face fierce with indignation. "Mr. Hale, Mr. Gregory is lying. I saw him go into the bathroom after Mom cleaned it. And yesterday I saw him in your office when you weren't there, and last week." "Naomi," Angela tried to quiet her daughter, but the girl wouldn't be stopped. "No, Mom, he's trying to get us in trouble, and it's not fair. We don't steal. We never steal. Tell him, Mr. Hale. You know we don't steal." The room fell silent. Gregory's face had gone from concerned to calculating, realizing his plan might be unraveling. Angela stood frozen, arms around Naomi protectively, and Victor found himself at a crossroads. The old Victor would have fired them both, Angela and Gregory, rather than deal with the mess. Better to clear house than risk being wrong. But looking at Naomi's tear-stained face, at the desperate hope in her eyes that he would believe them, something inside him shifted. "Gregory," he said calmly, "you're dismissed for the evening. We'll discuss this tomorrow." "But, sir, the evidence." "I said you're dismissed." Gregory left, but not before shooting a venomous look at Angela and Naomi. Victor knew he'd just made an enemy, but found he didn't care. "Mrs. Washington, Naomi, please sit." They sat on the supply room bench, Naomi still sniffling. Victor pulled up a chair across from them. "Naomi, tell me exactly what you've seen Gregory do." The words poured out of her, dates, times, specific incidents. The child had been watching, recording everything in her sharp little mind, because she'd sensed the threat to her mother before anyone else. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Victor asked. "Because he's been here longer. Because everyone likes him. Because who'd believe a kid over a grown-up who talks fancy?" The logic was heartbreaking in its accuracy. Victor looked at Angela, who was holding her daughter tightly. You believe us? Angela asked, voice barely above a whisper. I have security cameras in every room, Victor admitted. I know exactly who put that watch in your cart. Relief flooded Angela's face, followed quickly by anger. Then why did you let him? Because I needed to know how far he'd go, and because I needed to hear what Naomi would say. You were testing us again? There was disappointment in Angela's voice that cut deeper than anger would have. No, Victor said, surprising himself with the honesty. I was testing him. You and Naomi. You've already passed every test I could devise. The words hung in the air, an admission he'd never thought he'd make. Trust. He was actually saying he trusted someone. What happens now? Angela asked. Now, I deal with Gregory, and you two go home and try to forget this happened. But he'll keep trying to hurt us, Naomi said with wisdom beyond her years. People like him don't just stop. Victor looked at the little girl who'd shown more courage and integrity than most adults he knew. You're right, which is why I'm going to make sure he can't hurt anyone again. As Angela and Naomi gathered their things to leave, Naomi turned back to Victor. Mr. Hale, thank you for believing us. The simple gratitude in her voice stirred something in Victor's chest, a warmth he'd thought long dead. Thank you, he replied, for reminding me that trust is still possible. They left, and Victor stood alone in the supply room, surrounded by cleaning supplies and the lingering scent of lemon polish. Tomorrow, he would confront Gregory properly, with security and witnesses. There would be police involvement, investigations, unpleasantness. But tonight, he had something more important to consider. For the first time in 15 years, someone had asked him to believe in them. And he had. The morning after the watch incident, Victor arrived at his office earlier than usual, finding Gregory already there, polishing silver that didn't need polishing. The butler's movements were precise, controlled, but Victor could see the tension in his shoulders. Good morning, sir, Gregory said smoothly. I trust you've had time to consider yesterday's unfortunate discovery. I have, Victor replied, settling behind his desk. Tell me, Gregory, how long have you been stealing from me? The polishing cloth stilled for just a moment before resuming its circular motion. I'm not sure I understand what you're implying, sir. The missing letter opener, the petty cash discrepancies, the senator's gold cufflinks that vanished last year, the ones you suggested the previous maid had taken. Gregory set down the silver candlestick with deliberate care. Mr. Hale, I've served you faithfully for 7 years. This woman has been here barely 2 months, and suddenly you doubt me? I don't doubt you, Gregory. I know exactly what you've done. The only question is whether you leave quietly or whether I involve the police. For the first time in 7 years, Victor saw real emotion crack through Gregory's polished facade. Fear, quickly replaced by calculation. You have no proof, Gregory said carefully. I have cameras in every room. Not in the private staff areas. Not in the supply rooms. Actually, Victor did have cameras there, but Gregory's confidence was telling. The butler thought he'd been clever enough. Mrs. Washington isn't going anywhere, Victor said firmly. Consider yourself on notice. Gregory's jaw tightened. Of course, sir. Will there be anything else? Yes. Stay away from Angela and her daughter. Gregory bowed slightly and left, but Victor caught his expression in the hallway mirror. Pure venom. This wasn't over. That afternoon, Angela arrived looking exhausted. Her usual 3:15 punctuality wavered to 3:20, and Victor noticed she was moving slower than usual. Mom worked a double shift at her other job, Naomi explained to Marcus as they entered. The restaurant was short-staffed. Victor watched through the monitors as Angela began her routine. Her hands shook slightly as she worked, and twice she had to stop to lean against the wall. Mrs. Washington, Victor called from his office doorway. A moment, Angela approached warily. After yesterday's events, trust was still fragile between them. You look unwell, he observed. I'm fine, Mr. Hale. Just tired. When did you last eat? The question seemed to surprise her. This morning. It's past 4 in the afternoon. I'll eat when I get home. Victor studied her, the slight sway in her stance, the way she gripped the doorframe for support. Naomi, he called. Please ask Mrs. Patterson to prepare a sandwich for your mother. Mr. Hale, that's not necessary, Angela began. It is if you're going to feign in my house and create liability issues. It was easier to frame kindness as self-interest. Angela seemed to understand this, offering a small smile. Thank you. While Angela ate in the kitchen, supervised by a delighted Mrs. Patterson, who kept adding more food to her plate, Naomi approached Victor's office. Mr. Hale, can I tell you something? He looked up from his computer. What is it? I heard Mr. Gregory on the phone this morning. He was talking to someone about Mom. He said he was going to handle the situation. Victor's attention sharpened. When was this? Around 10. I was here because it was a teacher workday. Mom brought me early and told me to stay in the library, but I wanted to get my colored pencils from the supply room. What else did he say? Naomi chewed her lip, thinking. He said something about making sure the evidence was. I think the word was undeniable. And he mentioned something about your safe. Victor's blood chilled. His main safe contained not just money but sensitive business documents, bearer bonds, and items that could cause serious damage in the wrong hands. Thank you for telling me, Naomi. Are we in trouble? No, but I need you to do something for me. Stay close to your mother today. Don't wander off alone. The girl nodded solemnly, understanding the seriousness in his tone. That evening, after Angela and Naomi had left, Victor called Marcus to his office. I want you to review all security footage of Gregory for the past month. Every frame. Looking for anything specific? Proof of theft. And Marcus? Check if he has any unusual purchases or deposits. While Marcus worked, Victor did his own investigation. Gregory's employment record was spotless on the surface, but digging deeper revealed a pattern. Every household he'd worked for had experienced thefts, always blamed on other staff. The senator Gregory had served before coming to Victor had mentioned in a private correspondence that several valuable items had gone missing, though Gregory had never been suspected. The house felt different that night. Victor walked the halls, hyper-aware of every shadow, every creak. Gregory lived in the staff quarters on the property, and knowing he was there, planning something, set Victor's nerves on edge. At 2 a.m., the motion sensors in Victor's office triggered. Victor watched the security feed from his bedroom. Gregory moved through the office with purpose, heading straight for the hidden safe behind the bookshelf, the one supposedly only Victor knew about. But Gregory had clearly been watching, learning. The butler produced a device, some kind of electronic scanner, and began working on the safe's digital lock. Where had he gotten such equipment? This was more sophisticated than simple theft. Victor grabbed his phone to call security, but paused. If he caught Gregory now, it would be attempted burglary at best. The man might get a few months in jail, then be free to target someone else. No, Victor needed to be smarter. He sent a quick message to Marcus. Don't intervene. Just record everything. The next morning, Gregory was back to his perfect butler routine, serving breakfast as if he hadn't spent the night trying to crack Victor's safe. Victor played along, even as his mind raced with plans. Gregory, I'll be out of town for 2 days, Victor announced, the lie coming easily. A sudden business trip to Boston. Of course, sir. I'll ensure everything runs smoothly in your absence. I'm sure you will. Victor made a show of leaving, complete with luggage and a car to the airport. But he never got on the plane. Instead, he checked into a hotel nearby and watched his house through the security app on his phone. Gregory waited exactly 3 hours after Victor's departure before making his move. But this time, he wasn't alone. 2 men Victor didn't recognize entered through the service entrance, professionals by the look of them. One carried specialized safe-cracking equipment. They headed straight for Victor's office. Within minutes, they had the safe open. Victor immediately called the police, then Marcus. We have a burglary in progress. 3 suspects. But as he watched the feed, something unexpected happened. Gregory wasn't just stealing. He was photographing documents, downloading files from Victor's private computer. This wasn't simple theft. This was corporate espionage. Then Gregory did something that made Victor's blood run cold. He pulled out several jewelry pieces from a bag. Victor recognized them as items that had gone missing from other households Gregory had worked for and began placing them strategically around the office. in Angela's usual cleaning areas, in places her fingerprints would naturally be. He was creating a frame-up so elaborate that even Victor's testimony might not save Angela. The police sirens were still minutes away when Naomi appeared on the security feed. Victor's heart stopped. What was she doing there? It was past 10 p.m. Through the audio, he heard her voice. "Mom? Mom, where are you?" Angela appeared a moment later, still in her cleaning uniform. "Baby, I told you to wait in the car. I just forgot my phone." They were heading toward the office, toward Gregory and his accomplices. Victor called Marcus. "Angela and Naomi are in the house. Get them out. Now." But it was too late. Gregory heard them coming. He motioned to his accomplices, who melted into the shadows. Gregory himself stepped out of the office, closing the door behind him. "Angela," he said warmly. "Working late. I just came back from my phone. Naomi has a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and I needed to check the time." "Of course. Though it's interesting you're here now, just when Mr. Hale's safe has been opened." Angela froze. "What are you talking about?" "I came to check on things and found the office ransacked. The safe empty. And look what I found." He held up a piece of Angela's identification badge, one she'd lost weeks ago. "This was inside the safe." "That's impossible. I lost that." "A likely story. I'm calling the police." "Please, Gregory, you know I wouldn't." "Doi, you've been suspicious from the start. Always around Mr. Hale's office. Your daughter constantly snooping." Naomi stepped forward, her small face fierce. "You're lying. You're the one who steals. I saw you." Gregory's mask finally slipped completely. "Shut up, you little brat. Don't talk to my daughter that way," Angela said, stepping protectively in front of Naomi. "Or what? You'll steal from me too?" The sound of sirens grew closer. Gregory smiled coldly. "The police will sort this out, though I doubt they'll believe a desperate woman with massive debts over a trusted butler with 7 years of impeccable service." But Gregory had made a crucial mistake. He didn't know Victor was watching. He didn't know Marcus was already in the house. And he definitely didn't know that his 2 accomplices had just been arrested trying to flee through the garden. Marcus appeared behind Angela and Naomi like a protective shadow. "Mrs. Washington, please take Naomi to the kitchen. The police will want to speak with you, but you're not in any trouble." "How do you know?" "Because Mr. Hale has been watching everything." Gregory's face went white. "He's in Boston." "No." Victor's voice came through the intercom system. "I'm not." The police arrived in a flood of lights and sirens, transforming Victor's usually serene estate into a crime scene. Gregory tried to run, but was caught before he reached the staff quarters. His accomplices, already in custody, were being loaded into separate police cars. Victor arrived 20 minutes later, his supposed business trip cut short. He found Angela and Naomi in the kitchen with Mrs. Patterson, who was plying them with hot chocolate and cookies despite the late hour. "Mr. Hale," Angela stood when he entered. "I'm so sorry. We shouldn't have been here. I just forgot my phone and—" "You have nothing to apologize for," Victor said firmly. "If you hadn't shown up when you did, Gregory might have succeeded in framing you completely." Detective Sarah Coleman, a tall woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, entered the kitchen. "Mr. Hale, I need to ask Mrs. Washington and her daughter some questions." "Of course, but I want my lawyer present." "That's not necessary," Angela said. "We haven't done anything wrong." "I know that. But Gregory has been planning this for a while. He's cunning. You need protection." Within an hour, James Brennan, Victor's personal attorney, arrived. The questioning took place in Victor's study, with Naomi sitting close to her mother, clutching a mug of now-cold chocolate. "Tell me about your relationship with Gregory Hartman," Detective Coleman began. Angela straightened. "We don't have a relationship. He's senior staff. I'm new. He's been cold toward me since I started." "Why do you think that is?" "I think he saw me as a threat," Angela said carefully. "Mr. Hale has been kind to us, and Gregory seemed to resent that." "Kind how?" Victor interjected. "I offered Mrs. Washington a performance bonus. Gregory seemed to think it showed favoritism." "Did you accept the bonus?" the detective asked Angela. "No, I don't accept money I haven't earned." Detective Coleman made a note. "Your daughter mentioned seeing Gregory in restricted areas?" Naomi sat up straighter. "Yes, ma'am. I keep a notebook. Everyone turned to look at the 8-year-old. She pulled out a small spiral pad from her backpack, covered in unicorn stickers. Grandma Rose says if something seems wrong, write it down. That way you don't forget. She opened the notebook, revealing pages of careful handwriting. October 3rd, for 15 p.m., Mr. Gregory in Mr. Hale's upstairs office. October 7th, 2:30 p.m., Mr. Gregory taking something from the silver cabinet. October 12th. How long have you been keeping this record? Detective Coleman asked, clearly impressed. Since the second week Mom started working here. Mr. Gregory looked at us mean, and Grandma Rose says to watch out for people who look at you mean. Victor found himself amazed by the child's diligence. Each entry was dated, timed, and included specific details. It was better documentation than some of his employees provided. Can we make a copy of this? Detective Coleman asked. Naomi looked at her mother, who nodded. Yes, but I need it back. It has other important stuff, too. Like when the library has free reading hour and when Mr. Hale actually smiled. That only happened twice. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Victor felt his lips twitch. The detective continued her questioning for another hour. Through it all, Naomi remained composed, answering clearly and honestly. When asked why she hadn't told anyone sooner about Gregory's behavior, her answer was heartbreaking in its maturity. Because he's white and talks fancy and has been here longer. Mom and I are new and black and poor. Who would believe us? The silence that followed was deafening. Detective Coleman cleared her throat. Well, we believe you now. After the police left with promises to be in touch, Victor found himself alone with Angela and Naomi in his study. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving everyone exhausted. It's past midnight, he said. You should go home. Mom's car won't start, Naomi said. That's why we were so late leaving. She was trying to fix it. I'll call you a taxi. We can take the bus, Angela said quickly. The night route runs until 1. Absolutely not. Marcus will drive you. Mr. Hale, you've done enough. Mrs. Washington. Victor's voice was firm. A man I trusted just tried to destroy your life to cover his own crimes. The least I can do is ensure you get home safely. Angela's shoulders sagged in defeat or relief. Victor couldn't tell which. While they waited for Marcus, Naomi approached Victor's desk, where the contents of his safe were spread out for the police to catalog. Is all this yours? She asked, eyes wide at the gold coins and stacks of bonds. Yes. Why do you keep so much? Grandma Rose says you can't take it with you when you die. Naomi, Angela admonished. But Victor found himself considering the question seriously. Security, I suppose. Making sure I'm never vulnerable. But you're vulnerable, Naomi said simply. Mr. Gregory worked here for 7 years and was stealing the whole time. All that money didn't protect you from him. The child's logic was unassailable. Victor looked at the scattered wealth on his desk and realized it had indeed failed to protect him from the real threat, the betrayal of someone he'd allowed into his inner circle. You know what protected you? Naomi continued. Mom and me being here at the right time, and Mr. Marcus caring enough to watch the cameras, and Mrs. Patterson making sure everyone eats. People protected you, not money. That's enough philosophy for tonight, baby, Angela said softly, but she was looking at Victor with an expression he couldn't read. Marcus arrived to take them home. As they were leaving, Naomi turned back one more time. Mr. Hale? I'm sorry Mr. Gregory tried to hurt you too. Betrayal feels really bad. When my dad left, it felt like my chest was broken. Does your chest feel broken? Victor stood speechless. How did this 8-year-old consistently see straight through to truths he'd buried under years of cynicism? A little, he admitted. It gets better, she promised. Especially if you let good people help fill the broken parts. After they left, Victor stood in his ransacked office, surrounded by evidence of Gregory's betrayal. But instead of the familiar cold anger he usually felt when someone crossed him, he felt something different. Disappointment, yes, but also a strange sense of relief. The masks were off. The pretense was gone. And somehow, in the midst of betrayal, he'd found something he'd thought lost forever. People he could actually trust. The next morning brought lawyers, insurance investigators, and more police. Gregory's scheme unraveled quickly under scrutiny. The two accomplices were professional thieves with long records. Gregory had promised them a significant cut of Victor's wealth in exchange for their expertise. But more disturbing was what the investigation uncovered about Gregory's past. He'd been systematically stealing from employers for over a decade, using his impeccable manner and references, some forged, to move from one wealthy household to another. He targeted single men primarily, employers isolated enough that they wouldn't have anyone to verify his stories. "You were his biggest score yet," Detective Coleman told Victor. He'd been planning this for at least 2 years. Every small theft, every dismissed employee he framed, it was all building to this. Why now? Because of Mrs. Washington. He saw you starting to trust her, to change your patterns. He knew his window was closing. That afternoon, Angela arrived for her regular shift, Naomi in tow. Victor had told her to take time off, but she'd insisted on working. "I need the routine," she explained. "And Naomi needs to see that we don't run when things get hard." They worked in companionable silence for a while, the house feeling different without Gregory's lurking presence. Mrs. Patterson hummed in the kitchen. Marcus reviewed security protocols in his office. The house felt lighter somehow. Around 4 o'clock, Naomi approached Victor with her notebook. "Mr. Hale, I wanted to show you something." She opened to a page near the back. Instead of surveillance notes, there was a drawing, 3 figures standing together, labeled Mom, Me, and Mr. Hale. Underneath, in careful handwriting, "Good people who stopped a bad person." "You drew me as a good person," Victor observed, his voice carefully neutral. "Because you are one. You just forgot for a while. Like when I forget I'm good at math because a problem is hard. But forgetting doesn't make it not true." Angela appeared in the doorway. "Naomi, don't bother Mr. Hale." "She's not bothering me," Victor said, surprising himself with the truth of it. "Actually, I wanted to discuss something with both of you." They sat in his study. Angela perched nervously on a chair edge, Naomi cross-legged on the carpet despite the furniture available. The investigation revealed that Gregory stole approximately $300,000 over his employment here. Victor began. "There's a reward for information leading to the recovery of stolen goods." "We don't want a reward," Angela said immediately. "I know, but I'm offering something different." Naomi's notebook, her observations, they were crucial to stopping Gregory. That shows exceptional intelligence and integrity. He pulled out a folder. "This is information about Preston Academy. It's the best private school in the state. They have a program for gifted students that includes full scholarship opportunities." Angela's breath caught. "Mr. Hale, we couldn't. The scholarship would be merit-based. Naomi would have to test in, maintain grades. I'm simply providing the opportunity for her to try." "What?" Angela asked, eyes searching his face. Victor looked at Naomi, who was practically vibrating with excitement, but trying to contain it for her mother's sake. "Because she's brilliant. Because she sees the world clearly in a way most adults have forgotten how to do. And because," he paused, the truth difficult to voice, "she remembered I was human when I'd forgotten it myself." "Can I, Mom? Can I try?" Naomi pleaded. Angela looked between her daughter's hopeful face and Victor's earnest expression. "Well, think about it." But Victor could see the answer in the tears she was trying not to shed, tears of relief that her daughter might have chances she'd never had. That evening, as Angela and Naomi prepared to leave, Gregory's lawyer arrived. The man was slick, expensive, and clearly used to dealing with wealthy clients' mistakes. "Mr. Hale, my client is willing to make a deal. Full restitution in exchange for dropped charges." "No." "He has information about other staff members who might be stealing." "No." "Mr. Hale, be reasonable. A trial will be messy, public. Your security failures will be exposed. Your reputation." "My reputation," Victor said coldly, "has survived worse." Gregory Hartman targeted the vulnerable, framed innocence, and betrayed trust given in good faith. He'll face the consequences. The lawyer left, defeated. As Victor walked him out, he found Naomi waiting by the door. "Were you listening?" he asked. "Maybe a little," she admitted. "Are you really going to make Mr. Gregory face consequences?" "Yes." "Good." Grandma Rose says accountability is important. But Mr. Hale, yes. Maybe someday you could forgive him too. Not for him, but for you. Grandma Rose says holding on to anger is like holding on to a hot coal. You're the one who gets burned. Once again, the child's wisdom left him speechless. As Marcus drove them home that night, Victor stood in his doorway, watching the car disappear into the darkness. His house was quiet, his safe empty of its contents, now secured in a bank, his trust betrayed yet again. But somehow, he didn't feel empty. Instead, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Hope that trust, though fragile and dangerous, was still possible. Hope that there were still good people in the world, people who chose honesty even when dishonesty would be easier. Hope that an 8-year-old girl with worn sneakers and a unicorn notebook might have saved more than just his fortune. She might have saved his soul. The courthouse steps were slick with morning rain as Victor arrived for Gregory's preliminary hearing. It had been 2 weeks since the attempted theft, and the investigation had unveiled a web of deception spanning 15 years and 12 households. Gregory had stolen over $2 million throughout his career, leaving a trail of wrongly accused employees in his wake. Victor spotted Angela and Naomi near the entrance, huddled under a yellow umbrella that matched Naomi's rain boots. He hadn't expected them to come. "Mr. Hale," Angela nodded formally. She wore her best dress. Victor recognized it from having seen her wear it 3 times already to important occasions. Naomi clutched her unicorn notebook, now wrapped in plastic to protect it from the rain. "You didn't have to be here," Victor said. "Yes, we did," Naomi said firmly. "Grandma Rose says when you see wrongdoing, you stand up, even when it's scary." They entered the courthouse together, an unlikely trio that drew curious glances. In the hallway outside the courtroom, they encountered a small group of people Victor didn't recognize. One woman, elderly and frail, approached Angela hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you the one who caught him?" "Gregory, my daughter helped," Angela said, putting her hand on Naomi's shoulder. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "He worked for my late husband 8 years ago. When things went missing, Gregory blamed our housekeeper, Maria. She'd been with us 20 years. We fired her, and she could never get another good position without a reference. She died last year, still believing we thought she was a thief." Angela reached out and took the woman's hand. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be proud. You stopped him." More people approached, former employers, wrongly accused workers, family members seeking closure. Each had a story of Gregory's manipulation, his careful charm masking calculated cruelty. Naomi listened to each one, occasionally writing something in her notebook. "What are you writing?" Victor asked her quietly. "Their names," she said. "So we remember that Mr. Gregory didn't just hurt things, he hurt people." The courtroom was packed. Gregory sat at the defendant's table, still maintaining his distinguished appearance despite the orange jumpsuit. His lawyer, Richard Blackwood, was known for getting wealthy criminals reduced sentences. "All rise," the bailiff announced as Judge Patricia Thornton entered. The hearing proceeded with prosecutors outlining the evidence. Security footage, financial records, and testimony from his accomplices painted a damning picture. But it was when Naomi was called as a witness that the room truly paid attention. "State your name for the record," the prosecutor, Amanda Foster, said gently. "Naomi Grace Washington. I'm 8 3/4 years old." A ripple of warmth went through the courtroom. Even Judge Thornton's stern expression softened slightly. "Naomi, can you tell us about your notebook?" Naomi held up the plastic-wrapped notebook. "I keep track of important things, like when library books are due and when people do things they shouldn't." "Why did you start watching Mr. Gregory?" "Because he looked at my mom mean, and he was always in places he shouldn't be when Mr. Hale wasn't watching." Blackwood stood. "Objection. The witness is a child who could easily misinterpret." "I didn't misinterpret anything," Naomi interrupted, her voice clear and strong. "I wrote down dates, times, and exactly what I saw. October 3rd at 4:15 p.m., Mr. Gregory was in Mr. Hale's private office going through his desk. October 7th at 2:30 p.m., he took silver forks from the cabinet and put them in his jacket. October 12th at—" "That's enough," Blackwood said quickly. "No, It's not, Naomi said firmly. You said I could easily make mistakes because I'm a kid. But I didn't make mistakes. I was careful and thorough because my mom taught me that truth matters. The prosecutor smiled. What happened the night Mr. Gregory was arrested? Mom and I came back because she forgot her phone. Mr. Gregory was there with 2 other men. He tried to blame Mom for stealing, but he was the one stealing. He had this mean smile, like he was happy he was going to hurt us. Objection. Speculation about emotional state. I know what a mean smile looks like, Naomi said, looking directly at Gregory. It's the smile someone has when they enjoy hurting others. Mr. Gregory had that smile a lot. Gregory's composed mask finally cracked. He leaned over to whisper urgently to his lawyer, his face flushed with anger. One more question, Naomi, the prosecutor said. Were you scared that night? Yes. But Mom says sometimes you have to do the right thing even when you're scared. Especially then. As Naomi stepped down, she had to pass Gregory's table. She stopped, looking him directly in the eye. My grandma Rose says hurt people hurt people. I hope someday you figure out why you're so hurt that you had to hurt so many others. The courtroom was silent, except for a few muffled sobs from Gregory's victims in the gallery. Victor testified next, presenting the security footage and financial evidence. But the real drama came when Blackwood tried to cross-examine him. Mr. Hale, isn't it true you're known for being paranoid and distrustful? Yes. Yet you want us to believe you trust the word of a maid and her child over a man who served you loyally for 7 years. Victor stood straighter. Gregory didn't serve me loyally. He served himself while wearing a mask of loyalty. Mrs. Washington and her daughter showed me something I'd forgotten existed, genuine integrity without expectation of reward. How much are you paying them for their testimony? Nothing. Nothing? You expect us to believe. I offered Mrs. Washington money multiple times. She refused it every time. She works 3 jobs to pay her mother's medical bills rather than accept what she hasn't earned. Her daughter found cash in my open safe and put it back when no one was watching. They're the most honest people I've ever met. And if you're suggesting they can be bought, you clearly haven't done your research. Blackwood tried another angle. You set up tests for them, didn't you? Leaving money and valuables around. Yes. So you admit to entrapment? I admit to testing everyone who enters my home because experience taught me that trust is dangerous. Mrs. Washington and Naomi passed every test. Gregory failed the only one that mattered, basic human decency. At the defense table, Gregory suddenly stood. Your Honor, I'd like to address the court. His lawyer grabbed his arm. Don't. Sit down, Mr. Hartman, Judge Thornton ordered. But Gregory pulled free from his lawyer. That child thinks she's so smart, so observant. But she missed things. Want to know what else I took, Mr. Hale? Information. Every deal you're planning, every merger, every acquisition. I've been selling your secrets for years. The courtroom erupted. The prosecutor immediately asked for a recess while the FBI was contacted about the corporate espionage admission. Gregory, realizing what he'd just confessed to in his anger, slumped back in his chair. During the recess, Victor found Angela and Naomi in the hallway. Angela was on the phone, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. No, Mama, I can't leave the courthouse yet. Yes, I know you have chemo at 3. I'll figure something out. She hung up, stress etched across her face. Marcus can take your mother, Victor offered. Angela shook her head. She won't go with a stranger. She gets confused sometimes from the treatment. She needs me there. Then go. The important part is done. But closing arguments will happen with or without you. Your mother needs you more than this courtroom does. Angela looked torn. Naomi tugged on her sleeve. Mom, Grandma Rose always says family first. But Mr. Hale needs us to... I need you to take care of your family, Victor said firmly. That's what matters. As Angela gathered their things, Naomi approached Victor one more time. Mr. Hale, when Mr. Gregory said those things about selling your secrets, you didn't look surprised. Victor knelt to her eye level, something he'd never done with a child before. I suspected. Money was never his only goal. He wanted power. Is that why you're lonely? Because people always want something from you. The question, as always, cut straight to the heart. Maybe. Well, Mom and I don't want anything from you. We just want you to be okay. Is that weird? Very weird, Victor admitted. But good weird. Naomi smiled, bright and genuine. Mom says you're getting better at accepting help. She says that's brave. Your mother said that? Yesterday. She told Grandma Rose that you're learning that walls keep out good stuff too, not just bad stuff. Before Victor could respond, Angela called for Naomi. They left hurriedly, Naomi waving goodbye over her shoulder. The afternoon session was brutal. With Gregory's outburst about corporate espionage, federal prosecutors joined the case. What had been simple theft became a massive criminal conspiracy. Gregory's accomplices, seeking deals, revealed more names, more victims, more stolen secrets sold to competitors. Judge Thornton looked increasingly grim as the scope of Gregory's crimes expanded. Mr. Hartman, do you have anything to say before I rule on bail? Gregory stood, his composure finally shattered completely. You want to know the truth? Yes, I stole. Yes, I sold secrets. But men like Victor Hale have more money than God, while people like me serve them hand and foot for scraps. I took what I deserved. You took what you wanted, Judge Thornton corrected. And you destroyed innocent lives to do it. You didn't just steal from Mr. Hale. You framed numerous innocent employees over the years. Maria Gonzalez died, believing her employers of 20 years thought her a thief. James Morrison lost his nursing license because you planted drugs in his locker. Sarah Chin's family disowned her because you made it look like she stole from the elderly woman she cared for. You are not a victim, Mr. Hartman. You are a predator who used your position of trust as a weapon. She continued, bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. And Mr. Hartman? I've been on this bench for 20 years. I've seen all manner of criminals come through here. But someone who systematically destroys the lives of innocent, hardworking people while hiding behind a veneer of respectability? You might be the worst kind. As court adjourned, Victor stood to leave, but found his path blocked by the elderly woman from that morning, Maria's former employer. Mr. Hale, I wanted to thank you, and to apologize. We should have investigated more thoroughly. We should have trusted Maria. We all made the mistake of trusting the wrong person, Victor said. No, you made the mistake of not trusting anyone. There's a difference. She patted his arm gently. That little girl and her mother, hold on to them. People like that are rare. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped, leaving the air clean and sharp. Victor stood on the steps, watching the city move around him. His phone buzzed with messages, lawyers, board members, journalists wanting statements. He ignored them all. Instead, he called Marcus. I need you to find something for me. The best oncologist in the country. Money is no object. For whom, sir? Rose Washington, Angela's mother. I'll get right on it. 3 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Victor's study as he reviewed the final trial transcripts. Gregory Hartman had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for 15. The corporate espionage charges had added decades to what might have been a simple theft sentence. But more importantly, the investigation had cleared the names of 37 wrongly accused employees spanning Gregory's entire career. Restitution had been ordered, though Gregory's hidden assets would barely cover a fraction of the damage he'd caused. Mr. Hale, Angela's voice came from the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but Naomi's here for her interview. Victor looked up confused. Interview? For Preston Academy. Today's her entrance exam and interview. You forgot, didn't you? He had forgotten. In the whirlwind of trials and testimony, depositions and investigations, he'd lost track of time. Naomi appeared beside her mother, wearing her best dress. The one Angela had bought specifically for this occasion with money she'd saved for 3 months. Her hair was neatly braided with yellow ribbons that matched the dress's trim. She clutched her unicorn notebook, now worn at the edges from constant use. How do I look? She asked nervously. Like someone who's going to astound them, Victor said, meaning it. Mom had to work overnight at the restaurant and then cleaned 2 houses this morning to afford to take time off for this, Naomi said. She didn't sleep at all. Naomi, Angela said warningly. It's true. You were too hard, Mom. Victor studied Angela, noting the exhaustion she couldn't quite hide despite her carefully applied makeup. Mrs. Washington, We need to discuss your employment situation. Angela's face went pale. Am I being let go? The opposite. I'm promoting you to household manager. The position comes with a significant salary increase, health insurance for your entire family, and regular hours that will allow you to be home when Naomi gets back from school. Angela sank into a chair. Mr. Hale, I don't have experience managing. You've been effectively managing this household for months. You know every staff member's schedule, their strengths and weaknesses. Mrs. Patterson already defers to you on household matters. Marcus says you've reorganized the supply system to be 3 times more efficient. You're already doing the job. I'm just making it official. The salary you mentioned, it's too much. It's industry standard for the position. But, Mom, Naomi interrupted. Remember what Grandma Rose says? When blessings come, don't push them away with both hands. Angela's eyes filled with tears. I thank you. Don't thank me. You earned it. Victor turned to Naomi. As for you, young lady, are you ready for your interview? I think so. I studied all the sample questions. Did you know Preston Academy was founded in 1887 by a woman named Margaret Preston who believed education should be about character as much as knowledge? I didn't know that. She also said that the measure of a school isn't its richest graduate, but its most ethical one. Naomi paused. I like her. She would have liked you too, Victor said. Now, let Marcus drive you both to the interview. I have something to take care of. After they left, Victor made a phone call he'd been planning for weeks. Dr. Nathaniel Cross? This is Victor Hale. I understand you're the best oncologist in the country for Rose Washington's type of cancer. Yes, I know there's a waiting list. I'm prepared to fund an entire new wing of your research center. Yes, today. 2 hours later, when Angela and Naomi returned from Preston Academy, they found Victor in conference with Dr. Cross and his team. Mom, Naomi burst out. I think I did good. They asked me about my notebook and why I keep it, and I told them about observing and documenting truth, and they said that showed remarkable initiative for a child my age. She noticed the strangers then, falling quiet. Mrs. Washington, Victor said, this is Dr. Cross. He's here about your mother. Angela's expression shifted from joy to wariness. Mr. Hale, I told you. You told me you don't accept charity. This isn't charity. This is an investment in a family that saved my company from corporate espionage. The information Gregory stole and sold could have cost me hundreds of millions if we hadn't caught him when we did. Dr. Cross has reviewed your mother's records. With the new treatment protocol he's developed, her prognosis is excellent. Dr. Cross nodded. Mrs. Washington, your mother is an ideal candidate for our new immunotherapy program. The success rate for patients at her stage is over 80%. Angela's legs gave out. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Naomi ran to her, wrapping small arms around her mother's shoulders. It's okay, Mom. It's good crying, right? Happy tears. Angela nodded, unable to speak. The treatment starts Monday, Dr. Cross said gently. All expenses are covered, including transportation and a private room. I can't. This is too much. Angela gasped between sobs. No, Victor said firmly. It's not nearly enough. Your mother was a teacher, wasn't she? She taught you integrity, and you taught Naomi. That integrity saved not just my money, but my faith in humanity. There's no price tag for that. Naomi looked up at him with those wise eyes. Mr. Hale, are you fixing things because you feel guilty about not trusting people? Maybe a little, he admitted. Grandma Rose says guilt is just love that's arrived too late. But late is better than never. Over the following weeks, changes rippled through Victor's life like stones thrown in still water. Rose Washington began treatment and responded better than anyone had hoped. Angela settled into her role as household manager with natural grace, bringing warmth to the cold mansion that had never existed before. And Naomi? Naomi passed Preston Academy's entrance exam with the highest scores they'd seen in a decade. The day her acceptance letter arrived, Victor found himself invited to a celebration dinner at the Washington apartment, a cramped 2-bedroom space that somehow felt warmer than his entire mansion. Rose Washington, thin but bright-eyed despite her treatment, grabbed Victor's hands the moment he arrived. You're the one, she said. The one who's been helping my girls. They helped me first, Victor said. That's my Angela. And my Naomi. Hearts too big for their own good. She studied him shrewdly. You look different from what I expected. How so? Less lonely. At dinner, simple but delicious food that Angela had somehow found time to prepare. Victor experienced something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. Naomi chattered about her excitement for Preston Academy. Angela fussed over everyone's plates. Rose told embarrassing stories about Angela's childhood that had everyone laughing. Mr. Hale, Rose said during dessert. Naomi tells me you have no family. That's correct. Wrong. You have us now, whether you like it or not. Naomi nodded enthusiastically. We voted. It was unanimous. I didn't get a vote, Victor pointed out. Family doesn't get to vote on being family, Rose said firmly. They just are. 6 months after Gregory's arrest, Victor stood in his office looking at a new addition to his desk, a framed drawing Naomi had made. It showed 4 figures standing together, Angela, Naomi, Rose, and himself. Underneath, in Naomi's careful handwriting, family is trust. Marcus knocked and entered. Sir, Mrs. Washington is here with the weekly household report. Angela came in, professional but warm, a balance she perfected. Everything's running smoothly. Mrs. Patterson wants to know if you'll be joining us for Sunday dinner. Us. The staff meal. Naomi insists you're missing out on Mrs. Patterson's roast chicken. I don't usually. I know. But Naomi says usually is just another word for stuck. Victor found himself smiling, something that happened frequently now. Tell her I'll be there. As Angela turned to leave, she paused. Mr. Hale, I never properly thank you for believing us about Gregory, for standing by us during the trial, for everything since. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You gave us more than money or opportunities. You gave us dignity. You treated us as equals, as people worth believing in. That means everything. After she left, Victor walked to his window, looking out at the grounds. The garden, once meticulously maintained but sterile, now had a corner dedicated to wildflowers. Naomi's suggestion. She said perfection was boring, that a little chaos made things beautiful. She was right. His phone buzzed. A text from Naomi, sent from Preston Academy. Got an A+ on my essay about trust. Wrote about you and Mom and how good people find each other even when they're not looking. Teacher says I have remarkable insight for someone so young. I told her I learned from the best, Grandma Rose, Mom, and you. See you at dinner Sunday. P.S. Mrs. Patterson is making extra dessert because she knows you have a secret sweet tooth. Victor saved the message, adding it to a folder labeled Family that grew larger every day. That evening, as the sun set over his estate, Victor did something he hadn't done in 15 years. He called his estranged sister, Elizabeth. Lizzie? It's Victor. Yes, I know it's been too long. I wanted to apologize. No, listen. I built walls so high I forgot there were good people on the other side. Someone reminded me that trust isn't weakness. Someone's actually, I'd like to try again, if you're willing. The conversation was awkward, stilted, but it was a beginning. Elizabeth agreed to visit next month, to meet the people who'd changed her brother. As he hung up, Victor realized the safe in his office, once his most prized possession, had been empty for months. He'd moved everything to a bank, but more than that, he'd stopped needing it as a symbol of security. Real security, he'd learned, came from something else entirely. The next Sunday, Victor sat at the staff dining table, listening to Naomi regale everyone with stories from Preston Academy. She was thriving there, her intelligence finally properly challenged. But more than that, she was happy, still the same honest, observant, kind child who'd walk into his life with yellow cleaning gloves and changed everything. Mr. Hale, she said suddenly, remember when I asked why you had so much money but looked so lonely? I remember. You don't look lonely anymore. I'm not. Good. Because Mom and I were worried about you back then. You had everything but nothing at the same time. Now you have less everything but more something. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Victor thought, looking around the table at the faces that had become precious to him. Mrs. Patterson beaming as people praised her cooking. Marcus joking with the gardener. Angela making sure everyone had enough to eat. Rose, finally healthy, telling stories that had everyone captivated. Mr. Hale has a family now, Rose announced to the table. And families stick together. Through good and bad, Angela added. Through trust and betrayal, Marcus contributed. Through yellow cleaning gloves and unicorn notebooks, Naomi giggled. Through everything, Victor said quietly, meaning it. Later that evening, as the Washingtons prepared to leave, Naomi hugged Victor, something she'd started doing recently despite his initial awkwardness. "Thank you for believing in us," she whispered. "Thank you for teaching me how to believe again," he whispered back. As their car pulled away, Victor stood in his doorway, the same spot where he'd once watched them with suspicion and cold calculation. Now he watched with something else entirely: love. The mansion behind him was still grand, still impressive, but it was no longer empty. Laughter echoed in its halls. Warmth radiated from its windows. It had become what it was always meant to be, a home. And Victor Hale, billionaire who'd once trusted no one, had become what he'd never thought possible: a man who could trust and be trusted in return. All because an 8-year-old girl with yellow cleaning gloves had shown him that the opposite of fear wasn't courage. It was faith. Faith in the goodness that exists in people, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be believed in, waiting to transform everyone it touches. The story ended where it began, with a test. But this time, it was Victor who had been tested. And thanks to Angela and Naomi Washington, he had finally passed. What walls have you built around your own heart? And who might be waiting on the other side with the key to tear them down? If this story touched your soul, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales that remind us what truly matters in life.